All right, everybody, welcome. This is our Q&A session with Greg and the team. I'm hoping and assuming that you have come with some questions. If not, I have some questions to ask you guys. Michael or Pamela or Wesley, do you guys have a question that you'd like to share with us right now about comedy?
Or Scott.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it, Pamela. We got one.
Yeah, but this is not a funny question. Okay. Let's see. How can I say it? I was in the occupied territories of Israel a long time ago, and it made a crack in my whole psyche. And I'm a Gemini. I do well with opposites, extreme opposites, putting them together and harmonizing them. And I would like to do comedy talking about the Israelis and the Palestinians. Now, of course, what's going on is beyond belief. And what I'm saying is, I don't know if it's possible to do funny when somebody's dying in jail, or somebody's had a terrible car crash, or with very dark things. So it's a question.
I'm going to direct this to Greg.
Okay.
You can't run away, Greg.
Oh, can't run away. All right. So yeah, this is a tough one because there's a thing I call the hurt line. There's a line between comedy, and when you go over that line, it goes into drama. Okay. And so comedy doesn't deal with the true consequences of hurtful, painful things. That's why we can watch the Three Stooges take a pair of pliers to somebody's nose, and there's no real consequences to that, right? So there's the line. The problem, not problem, but the challenge is that line moves. It moves from audience to audience and show to show sometimes. So my definition of edgy material, a lot of people think it's cussing and, but I don't. I think it's if you ride that line of hurt, but you don't fall over into drama, right? Right on that edge is some of the most powerful comedy you can do. So it's either going to be very powerful or it falls over into that area of drama. So the challenge is that. Now, with that said, what I find is with really hard edge things like this, right on the edge, you want to talk about peripheral things rather than the actual painful incidents. For instance, one lady wanted to do a whole section on abortion. Well, if you talk about the actual act of the abortion itself, it's too painful. It goes into drama. So she was also an actress, so it turned into this peripheral things about having to audition for it. You had to audition before in Hollywood, you had to audition before you could actually go into the clinic, and we talked around it. You talk around it. So you'd be talking about, the different kind of hummus or the food differences, and then, like, et cetera. You can use those as maybe a metaphor for the war or the conflict, et cetera. So those would be the things you'd look for, because if you talk about the actual hurtful, like you said, so, these bunch of children were injured in Palestine and or killed or something, it's not going to work. But if you talk about like the Iron Curtain, I think, or whatever it's called, and you deal with it like it's a video game.
That is helpful. I
right. So now that you learn how to you keep it on that upper edge. It's on the edge because that's really hurtful stuff, but you got to keep it into the kind of little, I don't want to quite say cartoony, but that's kind of the best way to do it, is to not let it fall into the drama where the actual hurt is so bad. The idea is to bring some light to that darkness, right? That's the point of humor. That's humor is based in darkness and hurt anyway. And the point of a joke is to lighten that up, to give us a different perspective so we don't have to just deal with the horror of it.
That's superb. That's absolutely superb. Just to finish, I'm because thank God we have Zoom, we have the computer and everything. There are, I found like 10 stand-up Palestinians. So I'm doing some research. I want to hear what they're talking about. And this afternoon, all day, there were psychologists talking about maintaining sanity for both sides, because they were
See, what a great thing to talk about there. Oh, if you want to be sane, do this, right? You know.
Very good. Very good. Thank
So
you.
that again, you don't want to go for the actual painful things. It's again, a lot of times metaphors will help. Like I said, oh, it's a video game, so that you can take the edge off of
So
certain things.
I thought if I could get into a conversation with Palestinian comedians, I actually sent an email out. That might be a kick too. But no, you really gave me excellent. Thank you. Good.
You're welcome.
I love that perfume idea. Thank you.
Pamela, you were at the free seminar, weren't you, recently?
I'm a what?
You were at our free seminar recently?
Yeah, I don't
Yes,
think so.
yes, I was. Yes, I was not in bed. Yeah.
You weren't in bed, but I saw your place, like yeah, the roof is like this and there's a window.
Yeah, I'm in a roof. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're making me claustrophobic in there. Right? Just, right. So Jay Westfelling, did I get it right?
Feeling.
Feeling. Okay. What's the J for? Do we just call you Jay?
Jeffrey.
Jeffrey. Do you want us to call you Jay or Jeff? Jeffrey. What would you like?
Jeff would be fine.
Jeff is good. Okay. Where do you hail from, Jeff?
I'm in Marion, Iowa.
Wow. I had never heard of it.
It's a suburb of Cedar Rapids, just north of
Oh,
Iowa.
okay. I've been to Cedar Rapids.
Yep.
So yeah.
Just a suburb of it. Yep. I used to go by Jeffrey, but then I was circumcised, so I thought I should shorten things up a bit.
Always good. Yeah. You know, I got to tell you, that's one area in life where shorter is not better.
Yeah.
Well, you get 10% off. So this stuff. So Kev, take over.
Great question, Pamela. Thanks for that. The subject matter is always a really, really good thing to chat about, and that the line from turning it from comedy into actual drama. It's very important. If Steve's on the back channel, and he's going to give us any questions that might be happening on social media. So you people who are watching us stream right now, go ahead and enter your question right into social media, and Steve will bring that to our attention.
Yeah, I'm hoping we'll get more questions answered. The more people type into chat, we can just get right to the question. It takes a long time to interview everyone. So,
I'll offer a question again.
All right.
On my starting from zero standpoint. If you were to turn your comedy career back to the beginning, what would you have done differently, and what is the mistake you made that you wish you hadn't made?
This one's for Gayla.
Wow, what a question.
Wow. You know, I think, so my background is, got my college degree in broadcast communications. And I was in a mindset to make that work. I don't think I'm going to be able to talk. I was in a mindset to make that work. I followed that road for a while. And then everything I was doing was to help that work. Like public speaking and interview work, anything that was host kind of stuff. Okay. So the acting classes I took, the comedy classes I took, any sort of seminar I took was all about broadcast communication. I never really took it seriously to become a comedian. After all that,
Is that a dog?
No, it's a bird.
That's the dungeon.
Okay, Gayla, handle that. We'll keep this going.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. It's she has a Amazonian parrot, big, tall, huge it.
because
So-
no, Greg, because that was peripheral for me.
Right, I understand, but we knew what it was, and I was wondering how long she was going to let it go. So, you know what? Let me answer that one question for you, Scott, to some degree, because I deal with so many comedians at so many levels of their career. Many of them, if they have a regret, it's not playing it clean sooner.
Really?
Yeah, because I get a lot of like, what do I say, urban comedians, black comedians that are doing Def Comedy Jam stuff, and they can't get on national television, certainly. They can't get it because that's where your big break. I mean, your fame's going to come from getting on the late night talk shows if you can get on those, because hundreds of millions of people see you. Comedy Central, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and Netflix, tens millions, but not hundreds of millions, right? So I love this. Jerry Seinfeld used to say, why should I work so hard on something that's not going to help make me famous and give me the biggest range of possibilities?
Okay.
So we encourage all of our people to play as clean as possible, because you can always, blue up. You can always dirty up a clean show. You can always cuss during a clean show because the jokes are constructed from the humor rather than shock. But you can't clean up a dirty show. And I've seen so many people try, all of a sudden they're using, well, if you'd let me cuss, I'd be funnier. So that's probably one of the biggest things I deal with. That I've dealt with that many times, especially in private sessions where people, fairly famous comedians, call me up and say, look, I need to shift because there are certain shows I can't get on. So if I were to give some advice for that, which would be, it's harder to find good jokes that are, that you can put on network. To me, it's clean if you can put it on network television.
Okay.
If you can only put it on cable, then it's blue, right? But if you can put it on Conan, you can put it on Fallon, you can put it on Colbert. If it'll go on those shows, it's clean. Okay, and then today that it's different. In other words, you can probably say shit or crap or
Yeah.
God damn it or bitch or something like that, bastard, whereas years ago you couldn't. So that standard has changed. And that is, I think, and we put an emphasis on it, yet we don't censor. So some students go, no, my sense of humor is this, but we also know that they're going to have more limited opportunities.
Okay.
Gayla's back.
Hey, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Oh.
Anyway, so I
And
just,
the bird is in the oven?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's a dirty joke.
See, there's that hurt line. See, I think that's funny because somebody else went, ouch. See, there we go. We got a perfect
I
example
love
of hurt line.
birds. I was in charge of birds in a pet store.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, and they cook up so quickly.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, I have a question for you. You were asking about this. Is this because you're trying to see how to efficiently pursue this?
Yes, exactly. If
Okay.
I wanted to move forward, what's the best path, and what's the path I don't want to start off
There
on?
is only one shortcut, and that's mastering technique. That's the only shortcut. You need stage time and technique. That's it. Everybody moves at a different pace. So I can't say, oh, you might be able to do in 2 years what somebody would take 6 years to do. I don't know. Everybody works at a different pace. But the key is to focus on technique. Somebody told Kobe Bryant what to work on. Somebody told him that person is not as good as Kobe Bryant. He's not. But he knew what to tell Kobe to work on. That's where good technique comes in.
The fundamentals to actually, there are a series, or at least I've established a series of fundamentals just for that very purpose. That's the whole idea. I've spent 40 years doing that, is to say, oh, what are those fundamentals? And we offer those. That was also in my book as well. So that's the key. Most teachers don't teach. Most teachers actually of stand-up comedy don't teach. They more advise at best.
Great.
So,
Hey, Greg, we got a question from Tanya in the chat. It says, what do you do if you're only funny in a topic most people don't know about?
explain it to them. I mean, to me, that's the reason that I think a lot of, well, they misuse questions. Most comedians misuse questions as a way of bringing up a subject matter. You've seen them do it like, how many people here are married? How many people went to college, right? That kind of stuff. That I try to help them not do that. Use questions well. The reason you should ask questions is to find out if the audience does know the information, to kind of go, how many people here know something about lamps, and other than just, or something. So what you do is well, my number one rule is the most important thing about performing stand-up comedy is your relationship with the audience.
Mhm.
So if you have a relationship with the audience, you'll know that they notice, oh, they're not going along with me. And my belief is then, Tanya, talk with them.
Mhm.
Go, do you guys have any understanding of this particular subject matter? And if they go no, two things. One, you can start to educate them a little bit, but then it kind of goes away from doing stand up. Or you can choose to change subject matters to something that I call has common knowledge. If they don't understand what you're talking about, they can't get the jokes, no matter how good the jokes are. That's why we go to structure of jokes. I've seen jokes that are just some of the best jokes I have ever heard that most people won't get because it isn't in the range of their common knowledge. It doesn't mean it's not a great joke. It just means it's a joke that must be given to a particular group of people. So first is awareness. Are they with you? And if they aren't, discuss it with them and then make choices from there. Also, it starts actually also in the writing phase. If you're writing about something you don't think people have common knowledge about, see if you can get that little enough information in like an introduction or in your premise in order to educate them enough so that they can laugh at the jokes.
And I was going to say, if you have a subject like that, you can actually understand that some audiences might not get it, and you can prepare for that by writing background information in an entertaining, funny way with jokes, and having that prepared. Then because you know that might happen, so be prepared. That's part of confidence comes from preparation, and it's earned.
That's right. It is. Amir, good to see you.
Good to see you. Long time.
Wow, it's been a couple of years. Good to see you. You did beginning and advance a few times, and so how are things going? Your life doing well?
Yeah, I moved out to Vegas for med school middle of summer last year.
Yeah.
I'm excited to start doing some open mics again. Everything just opened up full capacity over here.
Yeah. Are you still in Las Vegas?
Yeah, I just moved to Vegas. I think
Oh,
Eric was the one who was in Vegas that would fly back and forth.
right. I understand that. Yeah, but we got shows going on there and stuff with with Eric and Mistress K, and who else is joining her, Kev?
I'm not so sure.
So it's a Mistress K. Seems like there's one of the Chris Kidder, I think, is doing some stuff with them as well. So
Yeah.
we got a little community out there of people you should be able to do shows with and stuff. So look them up.
Greg, we got a question from Frozen Gamer on YouTube, and the question is, can you learn to be funny, or it's either you have it or you don't?
One of the great questions. So let me just start with just some pure logic. Everything on this planet is learned. At some point in the history of the species, okay, I believe in evolution. So how did turtles learn to cross 5,000 miles of ocean? They didn't. It was Pangea, one big continent, and it slowly started to split. And they're, I was born here, I'm going to go back to that, and it was just across a creek and then across a rift, and And then as continental drift over, millions and millions of years, they kept, well, it was still learned. Now it's kind of in their DNA. It's in their instinct, how to look at the stars and guide themselves, et cetera, but it's still learned. So just let me say that I believe being funny is learned in this lifetime. Now, that's not to say some people don't have a personality or a drive or an interest or certain kinds of talents that might make them a little bit more presupposed available to them. But babies don't pop out of the womb doing one-liners. They don't come out and go, I don't get no respect. Why'd you slap me? Slap her. She's the one that had me. So children cannot be funny. Children cannot be funny on purpose until they understand the nature of assumptions. They're funny, but not on purpose. So, and that's what humor is being funny with purpose to make someone laugh from humor purposefully, not accidentally, and understand how you did it. That's learned in this lifetime. And I've watched comedians. I mean, I've known Robin for 40 years. I'm sorry he passed and everything, but watched him get better and better and better at certain skills, especially joke writing. At first, he was really not very good at it. He was good at all the characters. Then he got better and better. Watching a lot of people as when they first started. Bobby Slayton's a pretty good friend. Watching him do really bad one-liners when he started, and then he found his comic voice and started talking about what he was interested in. So, short answer is it's a series of skills learned in this lifetime. Now, with that said, many people like myself come from a very funny family who had highly valued comedy and funny. So everybody, I come from a family of alcoholics, and they were all funny. I wasn't the funniest person in my family until like my second or third year as a professional comedian. I had an aunt who could tell stories until you would cry. And then finally I became funnier than her, but was from studying and working at it. She just had a natural, but she'd been telling stories like that since she was a child. So, part of my work has been breaking down and looking at what actually is being learned to be funny, and 40 years of that. So I, that one of the best things that I did was once a year I'd go back home. I'm from Modesto, California, live in Hollywood, and my brother had a son, and I'd go back at least once a year, and just and then be around him for like a week. And every time I went back, he was working on a different set of skills to learn to be actually creative, funny, whatever it is you want to talk about with that. But one time I went back and he was reversing everything. Instead of peas and carrots, it was keys and parrots. Everything he was doing, he was reversing. He wasn't trying to be funny. He was just playing with information. Next time I went back, he was understating everything. Everything was less. Anything big, he'd make small. Next time was exaggeration. I remember a joke he did about, he talked about, some kid at school, some guy got hit so hard it knocked his shadow off, right? He's exaggerating, and then he'd watch him do rhythm stuff like some of the kids were watching Sesame Street brought to us by the letter M, and they went, what things come out of a cow with the letter M? Moo, milk. And he's like, manure, right? He knew. I mean, each time now he keeps working on these skills. Now he's a very funny young man. He doesn't work in the industry in any way, but you get around him and you have a really great time because he's very, very funny. He wasn't as a child. So it's learned in this lifetime. And that's one of the myths I'm trying to dispel by actually laying out those fundamentals. Here are the things you need, the skills you need to have to be a comedian, and they're skills. Once you know what they are, you can learn them, you can practice them. And what I love about this approach is then you can apply them to your own sense of humor. That's what's great about techniques, principles, skills, mechanisms, is that they don't dictate how it doesn't mess with your sense of humor. It adds a tool to your sense of humor.
Greg, Amir has a couple questions. Amir, do you want to unmute and give us one of them? I'll direct it to Gayla if it's appropriate.
Sure. So obviously most people have been on about a year hiatus of doing in-person stand-up. And obviously the dynamics of stand-up is different when you're doing it over Zoom or online. Do you guys feel like there's going to be a comeback in terms of audience back to comedy clubs?
Oh, it's going to be a swarm. People are so desperate to get the fuck out of their house. Right? Swarm. Yet, once after that swarm happens, everybody goes, oh, then it'll normalize. And I think Zoom will pick up again. Because before we didn't do a lot of this because we weren't familiar with the technology. Now, the pandemic has made so many people Zoom literate. I mean, they went from having Zoom went from having 20 million people enrolled to having 250 million people enrolled. That's why it got bad there for a while. It was because they were having to update. They couldn't keep up with the demand. Now, so many more people can do that. So I think that especially people that are not in the major cities are going to continue to do Zoom open mics and Zoom shows. Also, celebrities have found out, oh, geez, I don't have to travel. I can just, have a studio in an office in my home and do shows or do podcasts or whatever they want to do, where before they didn't have the technology. So it's definitely going to come back, and it'll take a year for it to be as big, and then another year for it to be normalized, I think, and then we'll be back to fairly normal, along with Zoom possibilities, because I know some comedians are fairly famous that they're like, I love this. This is fun. It doesn't take the place of a live performance, but it's like an added, oh, I can also do this.
Right. My next question pertains to material. So I've been kind of taking more of a different approach in terms of material. I've been trying to I'm trying to write material where I can just literally pick it up and use it anywhere. And a lot of times I remember in your, I don't know if it was in your advanced booklet or if it was in the intro to comedy booklet, where you talked about how much harder clean material is, because blue is just easy to jump into. It's just easy to jump into sex topics and weird dark places. But when you're writing clean material, obviously the mechanisms of jokes kind of still stay the same, but like what I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around is what's clean. Like what can you really say is clean, and obviously you have to read a room before you can, talk about certain topics, but what's a good level to start off from?
We had kind of mentioned that earlier with Scott. My definition of clean will change. And again, for me, it's whether or not you can put it on network television. Can you put it on Fallon and Colbert and Conan? If you can do it there, it's considered clean, okay, because it goes out to the general public. If you can't, if they won't let you put it on there, if they don't, then it's blue. It's more blue. It's too, so to me, that's the line. Now, if you start to get work, there's the 4 C's. The 4 C's are clubs, cruise ships, colleges, and corporate. Those 4 things, your 4 C's. Now, clubs, you can be dirty. Colleges, you got to be squeaky clean now because of political correctness. You can't even it's a lot of comedians won't even do colleges anymore because people are like, I'm offended, and so they just get tired of it, get offended. I actually just taught at some college, and people come, I'm offended. I said, well, the person that I was talking to, were they offended? No. So you're offended for them. Yes, I'm offended. It's like, what I wanted to say, I didn't say because I was being hired by another fairly famous guy who'd brought me in. But colleges, cruise ships have clean, and a lot of them now have clean and late night shows. So you have to have a clean show, and then you can be a little bit more blue late at night. So only the adults show up at the 1 or 2 o'clock a.m. show, and then you can really get raunchy and have some fun with them. Corporate, which is where your big money is at, squeaky clean. I mean, squeaky. I had a friend of mine got in trouble one time for saying damn, because the person who hires you is so afraid that the people above them are going to be offended. They want to make sure nothing is offensive in any way. So I just say you have more opportunities when you find humor in things most people can relate to, find the jokes in everyday things that people can relate to and laugh at, that don't need it doesn't mean you can't talk about sex. It just means you can't be explicit about sex.
Right.
You can't
I was
be
about to
talking
ask,
about,
if you can
the old,
somehow bring up these topics without actually saying anything or using any kind of one of
and
those.
you can do it metaphorically as well. You can
Right.
use similes, metaphors.
Greg, you're getting a shout out from Lou Deck. Compliments and regards
Woo!
to Greg Dean from the Comedy Store Gang. That came through on Facebook. And
That's right.
we also had another person who said on Facebook who came in and said, Greg has a passion for teaching. Gayla and Kevin are great too. 101 is good foundation. 201 is where you build and build. If you're serious, it's well worth it. I would like to say that was one of our students, but the name is DJDUUHFHFJDJJ. I don't know how to pronounce it, and I'd never seen that on our roll books.
Oh yeah, that student. I remember him. It took me so long to memorize his name.
Greg, we got a couple other questions. Michael asked some questions in chat. It says, do you have a couple examples of foundational grounding points or lenses or hats you use with yourself to help refocus or stay in your structure while on performing?
Huh?
Michael, are you available to come on right now?
I mean, I don't know the word you would use. Like, to me, it would be like just maybe like a lens or something but like you got like a structure, right? Especially like underneath the clean, you have to have a good structure if you're being clean and it's going to work. So like, if you're getting off, if you feel you're getting off or you're getting distracted or you're going down a road and you're like, oh no, why am I going here? Is there like any kind of like heuristic or quick kind of like centering point that you use? Or maybe as a bunch, this is just one example of something that brings you back to focus.
Yes, I have an answer for that, which is a premise. A premise is you state a premise at the beginning of a routine or bit. It starts the bit. So the audience, one, it tells you what you're talking about and what position you're taking. That's the point of a premise. And it's also your message. This is what I'm trying to say with this routine, and it helps keep the show on track. So if something distracts you, you come back to that premise and you can pick it back up again because you know what the through line of that premise is. So that's one of the things that helps. Now, with that said, I think every comedian should just, in order to find out that you're a funny person, is get lost. Get up there and you get a thought, a comedy impulse to go down a particular rabbit hole, of something, and the audience is laughing. Oh, you just dive down, you just keep going until it runs out, and then George Carlin used to talk about getting lost, and then the more you find your way back, and I find that premise is the thing that you can go like little anchors or signposts you can go back to and go, oh, what was my premise here? Boom, you can go back to that and pick it up where you were. But and I think getting lost is one of the best things you can do on stage, just because I found the best material I ever wrote was on stage. I write good material off stage. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, to me, it's it's what I call inside the show, outside the show. Outside the show, you write it and then you come in and do it. But then when you're doing something and all of a sudden a comedy impulse takes over and you just fall into something that's really funny, and the ad libbing and stuff comes, the jokes that come up out of that uh, is some of the best stuff you'll ever come out, because your unconscious mind is creating it for that routine. And for me, those are the best jokes, and they would stick in your show better than the stuff that you wrote on the outside of the show. So to me, it's a balance. So getting lost is a real act of creativity on stage. So every performance also becomes somewhat of a writing session. The possibility of writing another joke or a tag or even a whole bit. I've written whole bits on stage, just improvised them, came out of nowhere. Something happened and something came out of me for a couple of minutes, and recorded it and turned it into a bit.
Everybody, you can raise your hand if you'd like to. That way we know you have a question. You can also put it into chat. And we're getting a bunch of questions and thoughts coming through on Facebook. We got Djidabajidza asked, do I have to have a gray beard to join? And the answer is yes. All right. And we
and we're getting Gayla to, we just bought one for Gayla.
Gayla is your beard.
Oh, Kevin, it's been so long since I've missed you.
I know. Okay, Frozen Gamer asked, how can we overcome our nerves and stage fright?
Drugs.
You heard it here, folks. Drugs.
Okay, no, not at all. That's the worst thing.
Yeah, that's the worst.
That is the worst thing you can do. Now, okay, so stage fright may never go away. You get the butterflies. You want to train them to fly in formation so that they become useful. In other words, becomes energy, excitement in order to, and if you didn't aim it into the audience instead of at yourself, okay, you kind of learn how to aim it into the audience. It becomes a very powerful way to communicate with people. The other thing I want to say is at the top of your show, admit it. I said, Richard Pryor come out and go, I haven't performed in a couple of years and I'm scared like hell. Oh, if he can get up and start that way, why can't we? Why can't you get up and go, look, I am really nervous. Okay. I'm scared. I want, and one of my principles that I teach a lot of my students, if it's running through your head, let it come out of your mouth. If you're thinking, geez, I'm scared as hell, come out and say, I'm scared. If you're nervous, say I'm nervous. If you're afraid you're going to forget, come out and say I'm afraid I'm going to forget. Now there's no hiding anything. And that vulnerability will make the audience love you, because they're sitting out there thinking, if I was up there, I'd be really nervous and I'd be scared and afraid I'd forget. Now they just completely relate to you, because now you're human. You're a person. To me, likability in stand-up comedy doesn't come from being nice to the audience. Stand-up is really not a very nice art form. It comes from negativity. You say a lot of terrible things that are inappropriate, et cetera, kind of mean things as well. For me, likability in stand-up comedy comes from vulnerability. Are you willing to be vulnerable and divulge who you really are and what you're really feeling about something that's real honest? And when that happens, the audience goes, yeah. You find peers, because you find other people would relate to your fear and your anxiety. So that's my suggestion, is just state it.
Here's one from Rod. It says, when you talk about an anecdote on stage, you can act a little or speak as if I were talking, because I got on stage, but they tell me that I hear myself as if I was acting. Not exactly sure what the question is, but I'm thinking it might be choreographing your show.
Who's this for?
This is Rod. He's on YouTube right now.
Right, but who's the question for?
This is for Greg.
Okay. I'm going to suspect that you've memorized the words of your material. We make a distinction in my classes. We memorize our words in the classes. there are now we got to go into how the mind works. Okay, so this is very interesting. If you say the words over and over and over, and you do them the same way every time, and you say it over, and then you start to choreograph the exact same motions and the same and over and over and over again, it gets coded in the mind in a place where the only way you can access that information is in self-talk. Talking to yourself. You watch the people. I'm a master trainer, master practitioner of NLP and eye movements and location of the brain as part of that study. Your eyes have to go watch the comics who memorize. Their eyes will go down, and then they'll say, what they do is the eyes will go down. They have to say the joke to themselves, and then they say it to the audience. Look down, say the joke to themselves, say it to the audience. Some people can space out a little bit and not look down. But the point is that that's where it's coded. Then the only way to access those words is to look down. Now, you'll never have a relationship with the audience because it's about where you're placing your attention. If your attention is on talking to yourself and saying words and talking to yourself and saying words and doing exactly the same motions every time, what you're doing is replicating your rehearsal, which means you're never present, because your mind is always in the past trying to replicate what you practiced at home exactly. So you're never present because your mind is never on the audience. Your attention is never on the audience. Okay. Now, for me, if the relationship is the most important thing, your attention needs to be on the audience, reading it. I'm always saying to my students, if you're present and you play, you win. It doesn't matter if you're funny or not. You had fun and you were present. The audience knows you were there with them. But if you just worried about getting your material correct and you have no relationship with the audience, it's about the most important thing is saying all your words correctly and moving it and doing it just like you did it before. It's not very interesting. So I'm going to suspect that's what you've done. I teach a process where we take the joke and turn it into a scene. It's a little bit more elaborate than that. We're still memorizing the words, but they're in relationship to what's going on in the scene of the joke. So you don't have, if you say, I'm at a gay bar, and so you're there, you could see you're in a gay bar. You don't have to memorize it. And, what's the name of the gay bar? You see a sign above it that says the White Swallow. The joke is there, but you're not memorizing it in internal, in what I call self-talk. The difference between seeing what I call picture sounds and feelings and internal self-talk. If you're putting it there, you're just creating so many problems for yourself because of improper rehearsal. And one of my principles is however you rehearse, you'll perform. So if you're memorizing your words and saying them, all you're going to do is perform by remembering your words and saying them. And it feels kind of good because you have control over the material. Yet there's no creativity. Another one of my principles is that you get control or creativity on stage. You don't get both. You have to make a choice.
Since we're getting close to the end of our time, I just want to tell you that I did put the link to the classes. Our classes start next week. I put it in the chat. For those of you who are watching and streaming along with us, you can go to standupcomedy.com or you can Google Greg Dean stand-up comedy. Either one will take you to the right place. Classes start next week. Do we have another question? Yes, we do. Amir, didn't you?
I'm sorry, let me finish this. And then I just quickly, control or creativity, you don't get both. You're on stage in a relationship with the audience and having fun, but you're not exactly in control. You're kind of like on the wave, like a surfer. You have to read the wave and deal with it moment to moment. You can't stand on the shore and decide how you're going to ride a future wave. That's control. Control or creativity. I push for creativity. Kevin.
Amir has a question. He has his hand up. Amir, do you want to share it with us, and I'll direct it to the appropriate party?
Sir. So this is a question about writing. So whenever when you pick a premise, you can write a joke based on that premise. But for example, let's say if you I have this habit of where I'm saying, okay, I want to write a 5-minute bit on Taco Bell. is, and for some reason or another, like I find myself only being able to come up with, I don't know, 3, 4 good jokes about it. And then I just kind of like leave it and I just start up on another topic. And I never feel like I'm never completing like a bit or a set on a specific topic, and everything is just kind of unfinished. Should I just be like more comfortable with saying, all right, well, my Taco Bell bit is only going to be like 1 minute, and then like I just have to switch to a different bit that is going to be, it's going to have its own different timeline?
Gayla, you want to help him with that one? Oh, you're muted.
Sure. It depends on all the negative feelings or the stories you want to tell about it. If you have more than one story, Taco Bell, the food, for instance, but then there's the other pictures that you would see when you're telling your story that would have more details in it that would further the bit. For instance, if you're talking about eating something from Taco Bell, then while you're eating it, where are you eating it? If you're inside of the restaurant, there's other people, there's kids, there's noises, and there's other things on the menu you could have ordered. Maybe there's stories about the restroom. So in terms of completing a bit, we teach in 101 more skills about the whole experience of going to Taco Bell versus just the experience eating it or whatever your stories are about. There's parking issues, there's drive-through issues, the weather that day. There's certain things. So you'd make a list of everything you want to talk about, and then you'd explore the pictures and sounds and feelings that come from the ideas you had in the first place. When you first thought of it, there's a lot more in that picture probably than the one joke that you end up writing. So
yeah, she's right. She's right. The association list, make a list of all the different things about it. That's what she's saying. So that it's not just about the food, it's about the service, it's about the speakers, about the line to get in, about, being in your car. Then that helps you find more details. The more details, the better, because jokes are in details, they're not generalities.
Greg, we're getting a question from YouTube from Jamila. It says, any general notes for building a set that incorporates song parodies?
Song parodies? Make sure that people know the song that you're parodying.
That's really good advice. Common knowledge.
Yeah, it's got to be common knowledge. I mean, if you're making fun, I had was it a while back? A lady made fun of a rather contemporary singer, and people were a little bit older because we had an older person in the class and brought a bunch of, people that are above 50. Not that that's old. I'm just saying that weren't as familiar with pop culture, and the bit didn't work very well. Okay. Now in class, we laughed really hard because we knew who it was. So make sure, and that was the error she made, was not asking the question, do you know who this person is? So that's one thing. The other thing is write the jokes and then figure out how to make them rhyme. There's rhyming dictionaries. You can find the rhymes and stuff, but what are the jokes that you want to happen? And the other thing is also have some kind of, after every joke, have a vamping thing. Do you know what I mean? Where when the audience is laughing, you're not singing the next joke or the next verse or whatever it is, that you can just a piano, whatever instrument you're playing or whatever, that you can vamp while the audience is laughing, so that you can have timing with them. Because if it just goes straight through, you could, with some audiences, they might want to laugh for a really long time, and you're in the middle of the next verse and they don't get the next joke because you haven't designed into the song itself time for the audience to laugh at those particular jokes and stuff. So that's mine. There you go.
Great. Any final questions? We're about to wrap up. Does anybody else have any final questions? I think we're good. I have a question for Scott. I'm just curious, and we don't need to take very long on this, but Scott, you said you haven't been following stand-up comedy and you went to the improv. What were your observations about the improv after COVID when you haven't necessarily been in the stand-up scene? What was your observations?
It seemed as though everybody was a little bit finding their feet, maybe would be the expression. There was a certain, at least for a number of the performers, a certain hesitance, it was a little more palpable than a usual comedy show, that they were sort of feeling out the room. It didn't, there was not maybe the same level of freewheeling spontaneity. And I think the audience was a little hesitant as well. So you could sense that everybody was like getting back on the horse after you've been thrown off.
Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of like, I don't know if it's appropriate to laugh right now because we just spent 15 months in our house. You know,
Yeah.
everybody has to feel that they have the permission to do that in order to do it. So yeah, there might be some awkwardness. And I think that's interesting that you, as not studying comedy, you could pick up on that. And that's very intuitive. We always say that whatever state the comedian's in, the audience is in. And you just described that situation absolutely perfectly, that the comedians were tentative and the audience was tentative.
Yeah.
And understand that why comedians work out every night is if you don't work out every night and your material is just so fluid in your mind, then you get to move around and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. If you haven't done your stuff in a while, it's hard to explain. All these little things that you've built into the show, you kind of forget. So you have to get up, perform a few more times, you know, before you kind of find all those little nuances that that came as part of the performance. So I'm saying I'm almost positive that everyone's struggling with that, because you take some time off, even if you take, like with comedians, take 2 weeks off. Sometimes it's a couple of days to get back, you know, into your rhythm. You take a year off.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're actually different people by the time they've actually learned some things. Their values might have changed. What they want to talk about has changed. So now they're working on new material after a year of being, you know, dormant as far as getting up and performing every night, like a lot of them were. Rusty and new material. So always just take that into account, give them the benefit and laugh and enjoy them, because they're gonna get up to speed really quickly and get right back to where they were, if not better.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Great. So, hey, everybody, this concludes our Q&A session. We're going to have more of these, so just keep checking back to the website, standupcomedy.com. You can find out about our classes. You can find out about, we have some seminars coming up, one-day seminars. We also always have open mics, 3 open mics a week. You don't have to be in our classes to be in our open mics. Just come and have some fun with us. We got a lot of things going on, so please check the website. And on behalf of the entire Greg Dean team, I want to say thank you for coming. We hope we answered some of those pressing questions that have been in the back of your mind for the last few years. All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you very much.
That was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Wow.
Thanks. Yeah.
Happy Sunday.
Happy Saturday.